Good evening. For those of you who don't know how to play chess, I recommend to learn in order to enjoy the games of Garry Kasparov. Yeah. Well, dear friends, it's a very sad evening, and everything was said, everything. So I'll repeat it a little bit from my personal angle. It was just mentioned by our host that Simchat Torah is the day when we remember. I would say, really, I thought maybe by chance it was said, but we in the Soviet Union forgot everything. We didn't know anything. For us, the only Jewish thing which existed was anti-Semitism. But then, when I moved as a young student to Moscow, I heard this word, Simchat Torah. One word, Simchat Torah. Nobody understood what it means, but we knew that that is the day when Jews are coming and dancing near synagogue. And I went in the middle of 60s to synagogue, and there were a lot of people. Later, all of them were called by KGB to their institutes. But there was a lot of people who, like me, didn't know what to do. We knew that we had to sing, but we didn't know any Jewish songs. So we started singing Soviet songs about Jews, some of them anti-Semitic, but we didn't know anything else. And then suddenly you see how old people, very old people, who went to synagogue, go out of synagogue and are dancing with Sefer Torah. And that's how my knowledge with real Jewish world, not with anti-Semitism, started. And then, of course, we had the life that we learned and knew everything. And we believed that there is nothing new to learn. We have to fight, we have to build, but more or less, all the victories are behind us. And Israel exists, and Soviet Union doesn't exist, and Jews from all over the world are coming. Well, and the American Jews who are not so much coming, but they're supporting us, so everything is okay. And now there is Simchat Torah, and you know, during COVID, one good thing which happened that we had many minyanim in the streets, and our minyan, just near our house, decided to stay after COVID, and it's already third year. It's so nice, you can make Aliyah Torah from your balcony. And we enjoy it, and we are this Simchat Torah, and we are dancing. And suddenly, the first akafa, there is siren. And there were 7 sirens during akafot. And you know, it's Jerusalem. It's only once there were sirens a few years ago. So you understand something very unusual is happening. And then our neighbors who don't observe Shabbat, and we have very mixed and very good neighborhood, they come and tell us. And then we open the radio, the TV, and then you understand that there are things to learn. We forgot that we should not take existence of the State of Israel for granted. We believed that anti-Semitism is something that Jews of diaspora keep suffering. Well, of course, we have to help them, but it's not something about Israel. And definitely pogrom, it's not part of our history. So we had to learn, and now we are learning how to live again. It's not the end of history that, as Garry said, we have to go through our wars and through our battles again. And, well, everything was said already about this awful pogrom, and our ambassador tried to put it in geographical perspective. Look at what it means in historical perspective. No, many of your grandparents and great-grandparents came here to America when pogroms started in Russia. From 81 to 1920, there was a lot of pogroms. And the symbol of these all pogroms is a Kishinev pogrom. Bialik wrote about it, everybody wrote and spoke, Kishinev pogrom. It was awful pogrom. There were hundreds of houses looted and burned, and many women raped, and 43 Jews were killed. So this time it is 1,200 Jews who were killed in one morning. And you know, when you read about pogroms, maybe the most awful descriptions of pogroms in the times of Bogdan Khmelnytsky. And there are historians are debating whether these awful things which are described happened during that pogrom, whether these awful things really happened or it was only on the mind of one rabbi who was the witness then. The same awful things not only happened, they were put on internet by those who were doing it. The most awful things which are ever described about our pogroms happened now in Israel, and it was not a secret. They wanted themselves, there was instructions. We now have more than 100 people whom we are interrogating. And they got instructions to do this and to keep it on their phones in order it will be sent by telegram to the headquarters in order to frighten all the Jews that they will run away from Israel. And so we have no choice. We have to fight. And Israel really changed in one day from the most polarized society to most united society. You know, for the first time that I am in Israel, that there are no left and right. There are no hate to ultra-Orthodox and no hate to anti-religious, because everybody feels we are one family. You understand? In 2 days, it was the quickest mobilization in the history of Israel. In 2 days, 300 people were called to the army. 360,000 came to the army. And until this day, there are fights for airplanes, because only Lal is flying, from young people from all over the world who insist to go back to the army. So that's the moment of mobilization. And that's no doubt, that's tragedy which not only will stay with Jewish people in history, but which changed some very important things, how we view the world, how we view our neighbors, and how we view our own society. And let me stop, first of all, how we view the world. Because, you know, it so happened that I was dealing with many topics in my life, but in the last 20 years, I was mainly dealing with the question of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. Because 23 years ago, there was Durban Conference, and it was the first conference against racism prepared by United Nations. For 3 years, they were preparing it. And then there was a conference, and the only result of it was declaration that Israel is a new apartheid state. And then started, I was in the government, responsible among other things for fighting anti-Semitism. And suddenly, many political leaders are talking about Israel as apartheid, that Israel doing to Palestinians what Nazis did to Jews, that Palestinian refugee camps is Auschwitz of today, and the cartoons of Israeli Prime Minister eating Palestinian children and blood drops from his mouth. And I say, wait a minute, that is anti-Semitism. That's exactly the pictures which were in the Soviet Union. And leaders of the Western world were explaining me again and again that, look, don't confuse. You Israelis are confusing two things. Anti-Semitism, we are all against anti-Semitism. It's such an awful past. We all love Jews. We all do everything for Jews. But it's criticism of Israel, legitimate criticism of Israel. Then I propose so-called 3D principles, which until this day is used by many organizations, that delegitimization, demonization, and double standard against Jews, that's exactly what's happened for 3,000 years. If these tools are used against Israel, that's anti-Semitism. And of course, well, it's too abstract, too scientific. And then there came international definition of anti-Semitism, which includes, it says, okay, it's too academic, let's have through examples. And there are examples that denial of the right of Israel to exist, and denial of Holocaust, and comparing Israel with Nazi Germany, that's anti-Semitism. And again, there is debate whether we, people of liberal world, whether we Jews can accept this definition. It restricts the freedom of choice. And then Jewish specialists are having special convention and decide that there must be different definition. Of course, some criticism of Israel can be anti-Semitic, but denial of the right of Israel to exist, we are for Israel. But if somebody wants to deny its right to exist, so okay, let's agree, let's accept it. And then something is happening what finishes all these debates. After all, how else you can prove that anti-Zionism can be an anti-Semitism if the hatred towards Israel brings to the worst pogrom in Israel? The end of the story, no debates. That's how we feel. And next morning, when we still didn't recover from this awful unbelievable, you cannot believe that that's what happened to us. And then you see the statement of 31 student organizations of Harvard, including, of course, Jewish Voice for Peace. And it says that all this, the one who has to be blamed for this is Israel. And people go, young students go on demonstration, and professors declare these demonstrations what a great moment it is, because that is how liberation against colonialism always starts. And you think, well, I'm dealing with anti-Semitism a lot, so I think when in history you could have such analogy? And I remembered, and Gary probably remembers about it, that once in Russia, there was, before communists, there was Народная воля, people's will. The extremists from people's will killed the Russian Tsar, and that's when all the pogroms started. And the non-extremist part of people's will went to the people to speak about how important it is to fight against exploitators. And they had to explain something about these pogroms. And they said, even if it is an awful thing, that is the beginning of the struggle of Russian people against Tsar. What to do? That's how it's happening. And then, of course, Lenin came 20 years after this, and he said, well, if we have to kill some hundreds of capitalists to have red terror, it's such a small price in comparison with our dream about the better world. So let them be killed. So that was unfortunate killing of people for the sake of great ideas. And if you ask what it has to do with today's American universities, you know what? What your children are learning today? They're learning that all the world is divided into oppressors and oppressed. Oppressors are always wrong. Oppressed are always right. We should not permit to oppressors speak, because that makes the oppressed feel very uncomfortable. All the power to oppressed. And if you take from the word critical race theory, and instead of this we'll put critical class theory, that's word by word exactly Leninism, Marxism that we were studying in Soviet Union. And that is justification of the awful things which happened there. And that's what young students today learn. Who are oppressors under this critical theory? Oppressors are white against black. Oppressors are men against women. Oppressors are straight against gays. And oppressors are Jews, Israelis against Palestinians. 4 categories. You can look in all the books about these critical theories. It's 4 categories. And when it is fight against oppressors, even if it is such an awful thing as a pogrom, but in the name of this great future of the freedom for oppressed, it has to be like this. That's what these students from Columbia, from Harvard, I don't remember, there were so many of them, who said that's how, it was professor, that's how anti-colonial war for the better world begins. And there were many jokes, unfortunately, as always, there are many sad jokes. I think on the internet, one of them, I think, came from America, that student had to leave the lecture about microaggression because he hurried to the demonstration, death to Jews. And that is the reality. Well, that's laugh through tears. It's Shalom Aleichem. It's really Shalom Aleichem. But the heroes of Shalom Aleichem, from Kasrilovka, from Yegupets, their dream was to run away to America, some to Israel. A young generation of Americans cannot run away from universities. Where they will run away? And so that is the hatred in which they grow. And the fact that academical world of the center of the free world is giving legitimacy, is paved the way to legitimize this awful pogroms, and that's maybe the most difficult thing of all this. And the only thing, BDS movement, how many times we were speaking about BDS movement, that it's clear anti-Semitism because it applies standard to Israel, which is not applied to any country in the world. And so many intellectuals, and until this day, BDS is a very popular course of the universities to fight again and again. That is the real freedom of choice. And as I said, it is our intellectuals, our Jewish intellectuals, who were insisting that denial of the right of Israel to exist is not anti-Semitism. And the queen of the critical theories, Judith Butler, I'm sure she's also Jewish. 10 years ago in Berkeley, she was explaining that Hamas and Hezbollah, even if you disagree with some things which they're saying, but they have social agenda. They are big social movement. And so inevitably, they are part, as she said, her words, of liberal, left, progressive struggle. So it is here, look, of course, Hamas has nothing to do with intellectual life in America. And of course, these professors are against pogroms. But they are paving the way to the legitimacy of these awful organizations who are making all these pogroms. And that is something that we have now to learn very well. We don't need more lectures and more definitions. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism today, in its most awful forms. Now, well, I see that I'm getting signs that we are late for the airplane. We will make it. I'll be very short about two other things. What it means in terms of our attitude to our neighbors. I think now it will be much easier to explain why all so-called peace process was not peace process. 30 years ago, when we signed here in Washington, Oslo Agreement, it was all about how to take dictator Arafat, to bring him to Palestine, to say Palestinians whether they want or not, he will be your leader, and it is good that he is dictator because without restrictions of democracy, he will defeat Hamas. I'm quoting our leaders 30 years ago. And then some people like me were saying, wait, what about civil society, Palestinian society? They're saying, you're talking about something which will take 30 years. We are doing peace now in 3 years. So there are no illusions now. You cannot build peace by imposing dictator on our neighbors. And then the next, okay, Hamas defeated Arafat. So let's now build a wall. He will be there and we will be here. And if only they'll dare to shoot, we will destroy them and all the world will be with us. And we found out in a very difficult way, you cannot simply decide that it's not our business what's happening there, because dictators will always need to fight, to make their people to hate us. So the conclusion which I hope now we are all coming, that it is very important for us what kind of society will be there. And the only way to, as long as there are these awful dictatorial regimes, we can rely only on our army. And that's what we are doing now. And the third thing about our society, I already told, it's unbelievable how strong we are as people. It was the most polarized, it looked as if we are the most polarized society. That half of the people believe that the other tries to destroy us as a Jewish state, and the other half believe that they want to destroy us as a democratic state. And suddenly all this became nonsense. We are all one family. All our homes brought bigger because all our grandchildren are with us. Their fathers are fighting. And every day, everybody is thinking about the other families in your building or in your area who needs to be helped. And as I said, all Israel is mobilized. And I wanted to read you the quotes, but I don't have time. It doesn't matter. On every funeral, first of all, everybody in Israel today has somebody close to him, her, who was killed or who was kidnapped. And when you go to the funeral, and suddenly you see all these new graves, dozens and dozens of new graves in the few days. You realize that what a big tragedy is. And one after the other on the funerals speak about love. You'll be surprised. You think everybody wants revenge. Well, of course, we want that we understand that those who want to destroy us have to be killed. But, the slogan in front of my house, "Ahavat Natzech," the love will win. And I'm simply quoting the mother of one of the fallen at the cemetery, that I don't feel pity for my son. He is in the good place. I feel pity for those people who don't know what love is, who are killing, who are evil. And we will continue to love, we will continue to build, we will continue our life as one people, as one family. Am Israel Chai.